Hello, and welcome to Blades and Banners, a Tales of the Valiant actual play show set in the Eberron campaign world. It is Friday. We're here with another episode of the Ship's Log, our Q&A show, and this week we are joined by Mia. Hey, Mia.
Hello.
Recent episode, puzzle episode, your first puzzle episode this campaign.
Yes.
Fun, good, exhausting.
Definitely not exhausting. Unnerving because I not had to think about solving a puzzle as a real world in a real world context, because most of my puzzle solving interactions happen in a video game where
Sure.
I'm pressing buttons and swearing and doing all of this stuff, but having to be in the moment with as a human as a living being,
Right.
I felt some pressure
Yeah.
because I thought, oh, how does a person do this when you're inside the puzzle, not outside of the puzzle?
Well, and you can't do it infinitely like in the video game. You can get
Right.
it wrong infinitely in the video game. There's not a
Correct.
point at which it just locks down.
Right,
But,
right.
in
Right.
this kind of thing, it does kind of eventually just. Do you ever have you ever done an escape room?
I have.
Do you like escape rooms?
Do you know what? You're right. Yes, I do like escape rooms, but I also find myself, I bring a bunch of smarty farty friends.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes. So I feel like I do not carry most of the puzzle solving load in those situations, which is okay.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Well, it's more fun with other people.
It is.
Yeah.
And I did notice that I was using some of the quote skills that I've gotten from playing a ton of puzzle games in solving, in thinking about, all right, well, where am I going to look for a solution? What would this puzzle solution look like, sort of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the hard thing about designing puzzles from a game master perspective is my mind is going to work the puzzle in a particular way. And while the possibility of failure is good, it's not fun to just sit there and bang your head against a wall. There's an infamous incident in the first campaign of Eberron Renewed where Eric gave us a riddle to solve, and the riddle was something to the effect of I'm useless until you cast me away, or something like that. And so we sat there and we came up with lots of things that did in fact answer that riddle. Right. In various different ways, from very practical, like an arrow, to very abstract. I think we said friendship at one point, or love, or something like that. The answer was an anchor.
Oh, how interesting! Yeah.
Which, sure, that answers the question, but so did lots of the things that we said, and so it was like, this is frustrating because it feels like we have answered the question. And I can't imagine it wasn't for Eric as well. Right. To be like, well, okay, yes, but that's not what the person who made this door thought. Like, it's just
right.
So yeah.
Shiv has helped me. I have a hate relationship with puzzle games. But I find myself constantly playing them, so I've just accepted it. And something Shiv has said is a lot of this is about thinking the way the developer thought. It's not, if you are not getting the answer, it isn't necessarily that you can't figure this out. It's that you're not thinking in the same way. And that sounds like exactly what you were saying is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly that's exactly it. And
Yep.
also, I think the other thing is, and Eric is quite good at this, um, figuring out how to, if I'm bad at puzzles. Well, okay, so let's say Colin's playing a high intelligence character. If Colin's bad at puzzles, Finian's highly intelligent, and so Colin rolls investigation
Right.
with Finian. Does rolling investigation solve the puzzle? Like, do I
Right,
just
right,
tell you the
right.
answer now?
Right.
Because in almost every other situation, if you rolled really well, you succeeded. But it feels not fun
Right.
when we're talking about a puzzle or a riddle or something like that for you to just get the answer. And so it kind of becomes like, okay, how much of a hint does that number earn?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's one of the places where systems other than D20 often shine. Eric ran a system at Gamer Nation Con called City of Mist. And City of Mist is all you roll a bunch of D6s. And
Oh,
when
interesting.
you are investigating something, basically you're rolling a bunch of D6s, and the level of success it tells you how many questions you get to ask the game master that the game master must answer
Mm.
truthfully. So you get to answer, or I think it's specifically yes no questions. So you get to play 20 questions. You roll to get questions that you can then ask or something like
Yeah.
that. And that's a neat way to sort of deal with it. But D20 systems don't have that sort of baked in, and so
Right.
it's a little bit tricky to work out how to do that. But
Right.
I was pleased with how it went. I enjoyed watching you guys interact with the space
That
and catch me off guard with a lot of things.
Well, and I'm thinking, if we encounter another puzzle, I can just think about, well, at least I'm not Philip, because I can't imagine that you having to help guide without giving away the answers,
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine would be much more difficult.
Well, and you guys will often ask questions that I didn't think about.
Yep.
Like I thought about the standing stones, and then I was asked, well, what do the marks on the standing stones say? And that's the most obvious question to ask in the world. If I've described that there's engraving on the standing stones,
Yeah.
but I didn't have a clear picture of what that said, and so I was like, okay, well, they're gonna tell the story of this place, and so that sort of just led to to improvising the description of what's on the standing stones.
I'm sorry.
Um,
Improvising?
yeah.
Okay. All right. Carry on. What?
I improvise a lot.
Uh,
It is, and what's I mean, the funny thing, of course, is that I'm really bad at improvisation in pretty much any other scenario. Like when we did theater in college, and
yeah.
I hate improv. I
That's
absolutely hate it. I'm bad at it.
crazy.
I'm deeply self-conscious about it. I have no confidence in my ability to create the scene on stage.
Wow.
I don't know what it is about that specific context, but I don't know. But yeah, so no, I didn't know it was on the standing stones until I think Ellie Wise asked, and it was about to be easy because it was like, well, you don't read Elvish, so it's going to be fine. This is old Elvish. And then she rolled like crazy high. I don't remember if it was a natural 20 or something, but she rolled crazy high. I was like, okay, well, I have to reward that. So now I actually need to know specifically what it says. But it was useful. It let me kind of set the tone of the place and give a picture of what the original purpose was, and to tell this kind of little story that that otherwise wouldn't have ever come up. So that was, yeah. I
That's
like it when it
incredible.
works out that way, but yeah, that was not that was not in my notes. A lot of details that you guys drew out were kind of created in the moment in response to your good rolls, and that I didn't have there's a little silver stag in the grass, and I knew the need for an offering, but I didn't know there was a little silver stag in the grass until Otherwise sat down and said, I'm just going to feel the place. And so that, that kind of stuff, just the clues are usually improvised by me. I know the solution, and I know the purpose of the item. I know what the dangers are and all of that stuff. Like I have all of that stuff pulled up because you need that stuff ready ahead of time. But a lot of the details of any given scene, I'm usually making up on the fly. I don't usually have scenes written out in my notebook.
And that's you being prepared. That's not you coming to the table saying, oh, shoot, I didn't have time this week to do this. This is all I need to go into this.
Basically, yeah.
Wow.
Occasionally, I will have, like, if I was going to try and do a riddle, I would write that down ahead of time, obviously.
Right.
If I was very occasionally, if I have a moment where I really want a character, an NPC, to say something a particular way, I will write that down.
Yeah.
But otherwise, usually the details of the scene I make up on the fly, usually in response to things that the characters are doing, or questions that the characters are asking, or roles that the player characters are making.
I suddenly want you in an MRI or a CAT scan machine while we're playing, because I want to see what lights up. What does your brain look like when it's making all of that?
I don't know. I mean, I chalk it up to I have just read an enormous amount of fantasy.
Yeah.
And so and a whole lot of mythology and folklore and just everything that could be in those categories, I have got a little bit of, and it's all stuck up here in my head. And it has very little practical function. But I can create a scene in a fantasy world with very little assistance and very little prep.
And that's yeah. No, it's incredible. And I get it. I understand how you get from A to B, and I appreciate you laying it out. I'm still, going to be sitting there with my mouth hanging open, but that's good. It's good to continue to be appreciative of someone's high level of skill in something.
I appreciate that. It's fun. It is. And I usually feel really good when I've improvised a scene. Yay. Well, like I really liked how the puzzle episode played out. And a lot of the things from back in Kyber Shards, where I had to make this thing up on the fly.
Yeah.
I always really enjoyed that. There was a lot of that in Kyber Shards because I had never had any idea where they were about to go in Stormreach. And so suddenly Pog wants to go to the Church of the Silver Flame, and I know who's the priest there. And
incredible.
So a lot of that stuff. And in that kind of thing, a lot of times I'll have a bunch of NPCs that I know are around, but since I don't know when the characters are going to actually go seek them out or encounter them, and so I don't have how I'm going to role play them always worked out ahead of time. So a lot of that ends up being made up, and sometimes that works really well, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I'm really happy with the personality I created on the fly for this character, and sometimes it's like that's not sustainable.
And yet there's Lavexi with the least sustainable voice and easiest delivered for you.
She doesn't monologue.
Oh my God, we'd all die. She's amazing.
Yeah. Can't maintain that for long bits of time without taking a breath. But there are a handful of accents that I can hold just infinitely, and that's not one of them. I can stay in that character for a long time, but I need to pause, otherwise I'm going to start hacking.
Right. I actually I had to redeem in my Twitch channel. People can use their channel points to ask me to act, act like so-and-so for 5 minutes. And what they've taken to start doing is what they've started doing is combining. I want you to sing, as this character about that topic. Yes. So tonight I had to sing the opening theme to The Lion King as Sweetums the Muppet. About
that's hard.
Yes, about pizza and Mountain Dew. And I have to tell you.
And you had to make up the song?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Wow.
And my throat still hurts is all ironic.
Oh, yeah,
because
bet.
Sweetums for 5 minutes.
No.
It's ridiculous. But it's still fun.
There are people who know how to hold a growly voice for a really long time. And I've never, I have a deep voice, but I've never figured out how to rough it how to keep it rough for a long time without starting to need to cough.
Right.
So I don't know what that skill is. I'm sure there are vocal exercises one could do to become a better voiceover actor for that purpose, but I have never mastered that.
Well, I also want you to know that I may need to get tips from you about Levexi because Josh, one of our viewers, the person who is also running the wiki, has requested that I sing as Sohaina, but with Levexi's voice.
Oh.
So you and I are going to have to talk. I can't remember what the subject matter is, but he was very gracious to give me some time to work it out. Oh, yeah. It's writing the song, the sea shanty, the poem of Finian's legendary saving of the ship.
But in the hardest voice of any possible option?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Let's see. Levexi is basically, you've got to imagine that you have no lips. And it's as far back in the throat as you can go. And very very open mouthed. It's all. Speaking of Sweetums, in Muppet Treasure Island, one of the Muppet pirates, and I have no idea if this Muppet appears in anything else, but when they're calling the roll of the Muppet pirates, one of them is called Wall-Eyed Pike. And that is, and it wasn't deliberate, but that is the voice of Levexi. It was somewhere lodged in my subconscious, and because that is exactly the same voice. So look up the scene where they're calling the roll and listen to Wall-Eyed Pike talk. I think he's only got 2 lines. He says here, and then later on, I love Muppet Treasure Island. He says,
I know.
He says, "Dead Tom's dead. Long John shot him." And then Wall-Eyed Pike says, "Dead Tom's always been dead. That's why he's called Dead Tom." and that's his entire. That's all of the lines. But that made me just cackle as a little kid.
That's amazing.
I thought that line was just the best piece of comedy I'd ever seen when I was a little kid. And so apparently that voice is stuck back here somewhere and came out when I needed to make up Levexi.
As absolutely incredible.
Yep. Well, all right. We've got a bunch of questions. So let's dive into some of them. First question, and it is urgent because we got it from both Emily and Laura. And the question to you is essentially from both of them. What was it like? Well, Emily asks, what was it like? Laura asks, was it weird? What was it like interacting with Donabella since you got to, for an arc, play her a couple of times in Kyber Shards?
I have to say, just seeing in the question itself, now that she's no longer your PC, I get this guilty little thrill, my PC, but she isn't. But ooh, I was, I believe I was muted when because I type a lot of notes while we're playing, and I have a clacky mechanical keyboard, so I will often mute myself to take notes. And I believe I was muted when she was described, this young woman with pink, just there were a couple of pink things, pink weapon, pink, and when
her eyes and her blade,
yep, and I went, and so I was absolutely starstruck, like just totally addlepated. I have no idea to be anyone. Honestly, I think of Donabella through the viewer, as the viewer rather than playing her. So I was just giddy and clappy about seeing Donabella. And it was weird. And it was primarily weird because Sohaina doesn't know Donabella, and Mia knows her and loves her. And I have no idea. I had no idea how to reconcile any of that.
How to be a stranger.
Right. There it is. It was perfect.
Yeah.
And would Sohaina see this young lady and be all, oh my God, I love her, like everyone is when they're watching it? It was really difficult, in not like a bad, unpleasant way, but I felt awfully like brain tied.
Yeah. No, that was fun. And I had promised myself at the beginning that I'm not gonna just constantly pull in Kyber Shards NPCs because I want to tell a different story here. But
sure.
But I kind of knew that, like, we had an airship pilot who's a smuggler, and so there's some logic in it being possible for him to show up. And as soon as I'd decided I wanted a little side quest en route, and this came to my mind, and I knew immediately I wanted Donabella to be on the ship as his first mate, because we kind of teased a growing family relationship in the epilogue to Kyber Shards, and so that was a fun little bit. The tricky thing was figuring out how to play a Donabella who grows up in better circumstances than the Donabella that we met in the Age of Colseer.
Right.
And what I realized partway through, and I don't think I did it on purpose, but what I realized partway through is that she's clearly adopted just a ton of Pog's verbal mannerisms, because there were a lot of places where she said things that just sounded kind of dense, like, you can't cook with love. And I was like, that sounds exactly like what Pog would say in response to that, is that the idea would just go straight over his head, and he would respond as if you meant that literally. Where would love even go in the pantry? And that because as soon as I was like, why would that? There's that's either her being cheeky or she's just adopted Pog's way of approaching the world. And my only regret is that I didn't have her fist bump anybody.
Oh, but wait, you discovered that as you were playing her.
Yeah,
And that's amazing.
Yeah, the only part of it I knew ahead of time is I knew I wanted her to say that she needed to make more blood, because that just grossed me out every time Colin said it. And so I just needed to throw it back at him. But yeah, I definitely should have had her give somebody offer a fist bump, specifically, of course, to Finian. That would have been the thing to do. But
and Colin's response to the making more blood as Finian was brilliant and quick and awesome.
Yeah. He has to have been expecting it. I like, he is quick, but I think he has to have been on defense already.
There was one thing. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking. The idea that Donabella's excitement over Sohaina's history as a pirate was so in opposition to Sohaina's experience. So that was weird and uncomfortable. And I hope I played it
Oh yeah.
the way I had intended, where it it was it was just a neat moment to work around. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. No, I really liked that. I really liked that as well. Because I was trying to think what would Donnabella's reaction to a null be, but and I was trying to think I don't know, what would the null population of Stormreach be like, and I decided probably Red Ring
Right. Right.
gladiators would be a common thing. And so, but yeah, of course Donnabella thinks pirates are awesome, and of course she's tried to talk Malcolm into piracy. I enjoyed playing her. I enjoyed playing her at, I think in the watch party, I think we mathed it out to 17.
Yep. Yep.
And that was a lot of fun. Speaking of her, another question from both Emily and Laura. So in the questions were asked in the watch party about Donnabella's response, notes, comments about her hair. Where she said, I might color my, I sometimes don't want to color my hair, but I might, like,
yes.
that sort of, and I did that several times. And what I was going for was she's talking to real adventurers. Like, obviously she and the Rebel Warren gang / Dragon Blades go on very perilous adventures for young people, and she's very nearly an adult, so she's not out of range of an actual adventuring world, but she has an actual home life and she goes to school, so she's not a genuine, like, itinerant adventurer,
right?
And so she very much wants to talk to this group as if she's their peer. And not a kid. Right. And so I really want to color my hair, but my mom doesn't like the idea, or something like that. Yep. That can't be what we say, but that's what we start to say, because this is how I talk when I'm relaxed, is but my mom won't let me, or something, is a normal thing for a teenager to say. But no, I can't, and I might, yes. And I will if I want to. Yes. And so I really loved just, like, suddenly going to, and how dare you, like, just defiant.
Yes, immediately. Yes. And that was fun for me too, because I was feeling the response as Mia, because right now I'm half purple, half red. And Mia was immediately thinking, heck yeah, do it. And then I thought, no, Sohaina, what are we, it was another fun moment to.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the answer for Laura and Emily. Donnabella, in reality, would consult with her mom, because she and her mom have a great, healthy relationship, and so she would talk to her mom before making some sort of radical change, probably, and probably they have, and probably Donnabella. I don't know if Donnabella forbids dyeing her hair a radically bright color. Probably not, but she probably has an opinion about it. And so, yes, that's probably that would be what I was playing at it several times throughout the conversations where Donnabella did things like that. Was always it was always the essence of, but I need to ask my mom, and then remembering, no, I'm not gonna, I wouldn't. So, yeah, that's what all that was about.
So good.
Trevor requests of you, can we please get more singing when you give bardic inspiration?
Yes, and I want to put actual thought and effort into it. I'm constantly singing at home and in my streams, and I think I've been worried about sort of overdoing it. And I, instead of saying I give you bardic inspiration, I would like to create more of that. So if you Philip are down with me working that out, I will happily.
I have no problem. I think it's delightful when people want to do that. I don't know that I've ever played in a game where I've seen it on actual plays and things like that. I've seen other people do that. Um, I can't think. I guess I mean the only objection I can think of, like someone having, and this is obviously not what you mean, but if someone was gonna like bust out a full
Oh, right.
4-minute song every time you did Bardic Inspiration, it would be like, well, okay, yeah, but this combat's already going to take us an hour.
right. Of course.
But yeah, I can't think why. Yeah, no, yes, of course, that's fine.
Yay.
And then Josh has some questions.
There was another one from Emily about Malcolm.
Oh, you're right. Yes, you're absolutely correct.
Sorry, I just
was being able to interact with Malcolm in character everything you'd hoped it would be.
Yeah, I was just as Sohaina, I felt like Sohaina would enjoy Malcolm as much as Mia enjoys Malcolm, and I had a moment where I would have sworn that I had said it, but I was absolutely feeling Sohaina saying, "I like the way you talk." Like that was so it was amazing. I mean, Finian kind of hogged him, but yeah, no, it was great.
Well, Finian kind of hogged him, and Eliwise almost got into a fight with him.
Because of course.
Oh man, that was
yeah.
Yes, so thank you. I would not have wanted to skip that one. So Josh asks,
yes.
You've spoken a bit about what drew you, the player, to the Bard class. How did Sohaina discover her love of song and dance and storytelling?
I imagine that Sohaina was in her growing up different. Mm-hmm. I imagine that she was in her own world a lot. And just creating stories, and not necessarily adventures, but I didn't have a lot of time to think about this prior, but that is what I see. She's feeling like an outcast. Mm-hmm. And when she's by herself, she's naturally has this creativity inside of her. And maybe like kind of like a Disney princess sort of thing, just weaving a world for herself.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think a lot of kids who don't fit in, turn towards imagination and creative pursuits as a way to cope with that.
Yep.
So I think it makes a lot of sense. Relatedly, if Sohaina could see any Broadway level musical, past or present, which would she want to see, and why?
The one that just screamed out at me was Beauty and the Beast. I think she would marvel at Beauty mm-hmm. and the Beast. Obviously, identifying herself as the Beast, and just watching someone who was beast-like her be loved by the world that she's not a part of. She's mm-hmm. I don't know that I have to keep explaining it. I think that's just, I think that's pretty clear, but being able to receive, like being seen as a beast and mm-hmm. receiving love. I think, that would call to her a lot.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Here's this one I find challenging. If Sohaina were going to form a band in our world, what instrument does she think each of the characters, crew, and NPCs of choice would play? And what genre of music would be their focus?
Right. Because that's the part. I don't imagine mm-hmm. A sort of rock band like I would imagine the Strike Force. Mm-hmm. With that very important Y in Strike. It's but I am imagining some kind of when you go to Ren fairs and you've got maybe a lute and a mandolin. Mm-hmm. I I like the idea of Ellie Wise playing a flute or a little pipe. But I also like the idea. I think it would be amusing. I think Sohaina might not see Ellie Wise as having a need to play something small. So Ellie Wise playing some gigantic instrument.
Ellie Wise on double bass.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was sort of thinking like a sousaphone, like a brass.
Yeah.
Not sousaphone, a tuba. But yeah, would be incredible.
That's a very funny image.
Well, because also, like, I can imagine her like standing on part of it in order to reach what she needed, which would be incredible.
Right.
And let's see. I think Oren would play something more flamboyant. I would think like he's like maybe in a brass band he'd be the trumpet player, or maybe if it were woodwinds he'd be the sax player, but maybe in this he would be the guitar, the strummed instrument.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm seeing Finian on percussion.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. And I guess that would make Sohaina the singer, which
it does sound like it would.
It does. Oh, I think she'd be uncomfortable with being at the forefront like that, but I guess that's where she is. So we've decided. The end. Canon.
Excellent. Does Sohaina have a dream stage she'd want to perform on?
Yep. I think she'd want to perform in a setting. I don't imagine she would want to perform back in her home world. It's either that she plays in a large venue and her old crew happens to be there and witness her.
Yeah.
Or they take a job in the Talenta Plains and she's basically coming back and performing for them. Either way, it's the idea of her being seen by her first community in her full semblance of who she is.
That's awesome.
I think, yeah.
I like that a lot. Is there anybody in Sohaina's crafting queue that we have not seen mentioned on screen? So far, I think we have hats for Avelina and a matching fireproof set for Ellie Wise and Sam and a scarf for Donabella.
Oh, yes. The goal ultimately would be for her to craft something incredibly fancy for Lesh Durga. And I imagine that she's working on that in the background all the time. Like, just if it comes to a point where Lesh Durga leaves an opening for Sohaina to gift her with a hat, she's working on something that would be exquisitely crafted and classy. Yeah. But as far as already in the queue, I would say I'd be surprised if Sohaina has not already crafted a hat for Seraphina, because they've interacted so much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
And then Josh has some questions for me about some NPCs. What caused Sam the Behir to decide Donabella was his new favorite? Is it because she gives better hugs than Malcolm? I mean, Donabella is, as my experience of young women is more inclined to run up and hug an animal than probably Malcolm, who seems a rather reserved, kind of chill person. And so insofar as the quality of hugs matters, probably Donabella does more hugging than Malcolm does. I mean, that comment from Malcolm was only somewhat genuine. It is an experience of mine, and I have observed it in other, that You have a dog, and that dog is your companion, and then you introduce a small child into the environment, as we did, introducing a 7-year-old into our environment with a 4-year-old dog, 3-4-year-old dog.
Yeah.
And very quickly, that kid is the best thing in the world from that dog's perspective.
Oh.
Because, well, among other things, because that kid absolutely adores just running constantly
Right.
back and forth across the yard, and never gets tired of throwing things or chasing the dog or running and letting the dog chase her. That was the majority of the thing that our daughter, when she first came to live with us, our daughter just go out in the backyard, and she and our dog Argos would she'd just run, and he'd just chase her.
Oh my God.
And just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I've got a great picture from the second, like the first morning she was here, of her at tiny her just running pell-mell across our yard, with Argos just jogging along, looking sideways at her. And there was absolutely a point where we were on vacation and we had Argos with us, and she and I, my daughter and I, were wrestling, and he was watching. And after a while, he got tired of it, and so I was on my back wrestling with her, and she was probably maybe 8. And he just got up and walked over and stood across my chest, and then just laid down on me. Just laid down. This 60-pound dog just laid on my chest and just pinned me. Just complete betrayal. So that's what Malcolm is expressing, is the tendency of one's animal companion to gravitate towards enthusiastic young creatures. So yeah. Does Captain Rufus know what he's going to name his new ship, assuming there is a new ship? Hey, he just lost the whale shark, man. Give him time to grieve. And what are Kaelus's Vanatar's feelings on pancakes?
Oh,
I mean, we'll just maybe we'll never know, because apparently we're just not interested in Kaelus's hospitality.
Excuse me, to be clear, the gentlemen are not as interested in Kaelus's hospitality. There are definitely 2 ladies who would happily eat pancakes with Kaelus.
So I guess his feelings about pancakes are generous. He offers them. He would offer them, you know. And then Emily returns with the last couple questions, again for Mia. So what does Sohaina think of House Thorani, considering they more or less control the entertainment industry in Eastern Corvair? Which, of course, begs the question, hey, Mia, do you know who House Thorani is and what Emily's referring to here?
No.
Okay.
So can you share?
I can.
Yay.
So the touch point you have for House Thorani is Lady Mirabella Uruvi from Kyber Shards.
Mm-hmm.
She was House Thorani. So there are one of the dragon marks is the Mark of Shadow, and there are 2 houses that have the Mark of Shadow, Fjarlin and Thorani. Both of them have, like most of the houses, both of them have a public-facing business and a less public-facing business. The Mark of Shadow gives them lots of illusion powers. And so the public-facing business is entertainment. Lots of bards, lots of acrobats, lots of performers, and using the illusion magic of their mark to enhance the performance. The not public business-facing is espionage and assassination. Of course. So since the Dragon Marked houses are kind of intended to fill the role of like a cyberpunk megacorp, in Eberron, House Thorani and House Fjarlin would be like Netflix and Disney, or Amazon and Disney in terms of the entertainment industry. They're just dominant forces in the industry have enough money that they can control it, offer franchising opportunities for bards to work in Thorani venues, probably all the big venues that Sohaina would dream of visiting are operated by Thorani or Fierlin. And so I imagine that like any world, Thorani's got the big they've got the big venues. They're the ones that are going to be venues that are available for, I don't know, the huge names in Eberron's music scene, the right. Taylor Swifts or whatever of Eberron. Whereas most of the musicians that we have encountered, even though they're not necessarily based on purely indie musicians, would be what we would call indie musicians or garage bands.
Right.
That we've met so far. And most of the bars that you're going to meet in portside bars in the principalities are going to be more indie musicians.
Yeah. Okay. And I actually really appreciate that. I have been taking notes, so thank you. And I imagine Sohaina would be starry-eyed about those bards, but I don't see her as having not the ambition, but the drive, the need to acquire that level of fame.
Okay.
I think there would be some sort of self-deprecation in there as well, where she would happily just sit wide-eyed, chin in hand, in a chair that probably doesn't fit her very well. And just really soaking it all in and enjoying it. Like Mia as the cynic would be disinterested in all of that highfalutin corporate fame.
Mainstream.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, exactly. But that's not Sohaina. Sohaina doesn't have that cynic bit to her. So she would be starry-eyed about it, but she doesn't have this, I've got to get there someday, right. Just so she's happy to be able to be doing performing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
We do have one. We skipped one.
We skipped one. Where did I skip?
It's about Aggie's hat.
Oh, I did. Yes, I missed the tail end of that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Josh asked, and this was a follow-up to the crafting queue thing. What sort of hat does Aggie wear, or should she wear a hat?
Right. So it has, I love this question. I imagine Aggie has many hats in various states of disrepair. And I feel like Aggie absolutely tolerates them. She's not trying to get them off of her head. She's used to it. But in her enthusiasm and excitement and bashing and sneezing has just absolutely destroyed, just runs through hats. And I see Sohaina perfecting her little hat craft on Aggie. Aggie has been the test model. And we have landed on a hat that must have a tie underneath.
Right, sure.
Like something a little sturdier, which can withstand maybe some leather. Right. I don't know that we'd want to put Aggie in a little sort of metal helmet, but I think leather and then a strap to tie underneath so it will stay secure while she's out and about.
That's adorable.
I love the question, so thank you.
Yes. I did pass over a couple of questions for viewers that you probably noticed. I passed over a couple of questions that contained really Kyber Shard specific things that were in any way, shape, or form spoilers, because the intention is you can start Blades and Banners and not have seen Kyber Shards. You missed some things in the last episodes involving Donabella and Malcolm, but hopefully they were still entertaining.
Yeah.
But the intention is that this can be started, and so anything that had any kind of Kyber Shards spoilers or would reveal things about those characters too much, I tried to avoid those questions. So passed over a couple of questions for that reason. And yeah, so apologize there. But that's what was about. Anyway, that is all of our questions. And thank you so much. These were a great group of questions that we had.
Yeah.
And thank you, Mia, for making time to do this.
Thank you.
And yeah, if you'd like to get in touch with us or ask questions for the next Ship's Log in a couple of weeks, with probably Colin, I think it's been a minute since we had Colin in, you can do so over on our Discord, the link to which is down in the description, along with links to all of the things that our cast does and our merch store and various things like that. New episodes of Blades and Banners drop on Mondays, and the Ship's Log is roughly every other Friday over on our YouTube channel. And until next time, thanks for rolling with us.